everyone, Mr. Machado here. Today we are going to be talking about grammar. As we already learned a few weeks ago, grammar is a set of rules that we need to know in order to use a language. In our case, we are learning English in school. So it's very important that we understand English grammar in order to speak, read, and write English properly. Last week we learned the difference between a complete sentence and a fragment. We learned that a complete sentence answers two questions. We need to know who and we need to know what. We also learned that the who and the what have special names. We learned that who or what the sentence is about, it's called the subject. And we also learned that the other part of the sentence, what the subject is, has, or does, it's called the predicate. So let's take a look at this example right here, just to refresh your memory. The dog drank water from the pond. Who is the subject of my sentence? Who or what is this sentence about? This sentence is about the dog. So the dog is the subject of the sentence. And the predicate would be what we are learning about the dog. Drank water from the pond. That's the information that we learn about the dog. So that would be the predicate. Today, we are going to learn different ways for us to identify the subject and the predicate of sentences. And we are going to start talking a little bit about parts of speech. But Mr. Machado, what are parts of speech? We never heard that before. So basically, we have 9 different types of words when it comes to English. And all those words have a different job. Those different types of words are called parts of speech. That's how we separate those words to figure out what job do they do when it comes to sentences and when it comes to writing and reading. So it's very important for us to also understand a little bit about parts of speech. Today we are going to focus on 3 different parts of speech, the parts of speech that have to do with subject and predicate. So let's dive right in. When it comes to the subject, I can find 2 different parts of speech. I can find nouns and I can find pronouns. But what are nouns and pronouns? A noun is a word that represents a person, a place, animal, or a thing. So for example, the word school. The word school is a noun because it represents that place that we all go to learn that we miss so much right now. The word Mrs. Jones represents a person. Instead of me bringing Mrs. Jones or pointing to Mrs. Jones, I can use that word to represent her. The word pencil represents an object that we use to write in school. So all those words are called nouns. But what about a pronoun? A pronoun is a word that replaces a noun. It's a word that I can use instead of repeating the noun over and over. So for example, if I'm talking about Mrs. Jones went to school. Mrs. Jones taught a class. Mrs. Jones went back home. Instead of repeating the noun Mrs. Jones over and over, I can replace that noun for a pronoun. Instead of saying Mrs. Jones, I can say she. She went to school. She went home. She taught a whole day. So I can use pronouns to replace the nouns. When I think the word pro, it makes me think of a pro athlete, someone that's really good at playing something, any sport, and I kind of imagine a game where the coach is not very pleased with how one of the players is doing, so the coach might just send that pro athlete in to replace that other athlete that's not doing so well. That's what pronouns do. Instead of using the same nouns over and over, you can send in the pronoun to take place of that noun. So here's some of the subject pronouns you are going to see very often. I, you, they, we, it, he, and she. The pronoun it is used for objects, for things that are not really alive. Just wanted to point that out because that's when you're going to see that pronoun being used. So now let's talk a little bit about the predicate. Which part of speech should I be looking for when I'm looking for the predicate? The predicate usually starts with the verb. And we all know that verbs are action words. A verb, it's a word that represents an action. So here are just a few examples of some action words you know. I'm pretty sure you know way more than the words that you can see on your screen, but that gives you an idea of what a verb is. Any word that's an action, any word that somebody can do, okay? To kneel, to hold, to sit, jump, pick up, to punch, to pull, to push, to dive, to lean, to give, to eat, to drink. All those words represent an action. So just to review, a subject is usually composed by a noun or a pronoun, and the predicate usually starts with a verb. Okay, so let's take a look at a few examples right now, and let's see if we can find the subject and the predicate using these new hints that we just learned. Maria arrived from her space trip. Who is the sentence about? What is the subject? The subject is Maria. I know that Maria is the subject because the word Maria is a noun. That is a word that represents a person. That's the subject of the sentence. So what is the predicate? What do we know about Maria? What's happening with Maria? We know that the predicate is arrived from her space trip. We know that because that is the information we are learning about Maria, and also that part of the sentence is the part that starts with the verb to arrive. Let's take a look at another example. She slept all day. Who is this sentence about? What is the subject of the sentence? The subject of the sentence is the word she. It's a pronoun. Instead of saying her name again, this sentence has a pronoun. It says she slept all day. So the word she is the subject of the sentence. What about the predicate? The predicate would be slept all day. I know that that's the predicate because that is the information I'm learning about she on this sentence, and also because I see the word slept, which comes from the verb to sleep. So the predicate would be slept all day. Peter and Carlos are exploring space. Who is the sentence about? I know that the subject is Peter and Carlos. I have two different nouns. The word Peter and the word Carlos both represent a person. So that's the subject of the sentence. The predicate are still exploring space. I know that's the predicate because that is the information we know about them, and also because it starts with a verb. I see the word are, which comes from the verb to be. The astronauts practice self-care in the spaceship. Who is this sentence about? What is the subject? Do you see any nouns? Great. The noun that we see right there is the word astronaut. The word astronaut is a noun. It represents a person that usually goes out of space. What is the sentence telling us about the astronauts? The predicate is practice self-care in the spaceship, because that is the information I'm learning about the astronauts, and also because it starts with a verb. It starts with the verb to practice, which is an action word. They write everything they learn. What do you think is the subject of the sentence? The subject is the word they, and the word they is a pronoun. I'm using the word they instead of saying Peter and Carlos again, or instead of saying the astronauts, I'm using a pronoun. I'm using a word that's taking place of a noun. Write everything they learn is the predicate. It starts with the verb to write, and it tells me information about the subject. The planet Earth is the third planet from the sun. The planet Earth is my subject because it has a noun, and I know that the sentence is talking about the planet Earth. Is the third planet from the sun. That is the predicate. It starts with the word is, which comes from the verb to be. It has a strong magnetic field. I hope you remember that from the forces unit we had in third grade. So what is the subject of the sentence? What is the sentence about? This sentence is about the Earth. We know the Earth has a strong magnetic field, the planet Earth. But instead of writing the planet Earth right here, we have a pronoun. What is the pronoun we have? It. It is a pronoun. It's taking place of the word, the planet Earth. So it is our subject. What is the predicate of this sentence? Has a strong magnetic field. We know that that's the predicate because that's the information I'm learning about the subject. And also it starts with the word has, which comes from the verb to have. So now that we practice a lot together, I feel like you guys are ready to do this on your own. Here's your exit ticket. You are going to have a list of 8 different fragments. Those are not complete sentences. It's just a small piece. We are missing some information. Your job is to add the subject or the predicate to each of the sentences. If you finish and you want to keep practicing, here's a challenge. Go around your house, talk to everybody, and have each member of your family give you a sentence. Ask everybody to give you a sentence. Write that sentence down and try to identify what is the subject and what is the predicate of that sentence they gave you, okay? I hope you guys enjoy learning a little more about subjects and predicates. I'll see you guys next time.